if you can get, your first goal to be like, I want 50 followers, like that's a very small goal, but it's doable. And then after you have 50 followers, you'll realize like, oh wait, I could have doubled this goal. It's a lot easier to keep having smaller goals that you will be able to fulfill than being like, I want to have 10,000 followers right now. It's a lot harder to think about because even if you made, 1,000 followers, that's really great, like social proof for a lot of people. If somebody looks at your page and they're like, wow, 1,000 other people like followed you, that is a definite like positive.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today, our guest is Rylee. She's an NFT artist and much more. So, Rylee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show. Super excited to talk about, being a creator and, more than that.
Okay, that's awesome. Can you tell the audience who you are and what's your background and what kind of content you create?
Absolutely. So my name is Rylee Armond. I started as a model and an artist, but I ended up, discovering Web3 and NFTs and started, creating my own crypto art. And I create a lot of content surrounding like education about NFTs and how to enter the space safely and not get scammed and what information is really key to know like for an artist or a musician that wants to get into the space. But I also am a really big fan of the lifestyle genre, so I just love
Mhm.
sharing about my life. I think a lot of people like to see adventures and cats and, just things that, humanize creators a little bit too. Like not everything has to be super like, oh, this is going to go viral
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah.
There's a bit of like authentic vibe that you should kind of like stick to when it comes to creating content that I believe a lot of people kind of lose because of
Yeah.
the hype of things and, especially on TikTok.
Yeah. I actually really do love TikTok though. I've had a lot of good connections between other creators on TikTok. So I would say if you feel comfortable like reaching out to
Mhm.
creators that you trust on there, it's like it can be a really great way to make friends honestly online.
Absolutely. So, Rylee, can you tell us a bit about the background that you have that made you kind of jump on the NFT space? Like, can you tell us about that transition and how it happened to you?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think a lot of people grew up and they knew that, like, oh, art, like, you can't make money in that. So, when I was growing up, I didn't really think of my art as, like, oh, that's going to be my career for sure.
Mhm.
So, I went into mathematics and I really wanted to study, like, the logical side of things and just how, the world worked in that sort of sense. And I think that learning math has never really hurt me in my journey into, like, learning more about new technologies. But that's where I started, and I kind of realized that, like, the NFT space is really bringing together, like, creativity and technology, which is something that I felt really passionately aligned about, and so that's kind of why I chose to, like, really dive full into the space.
That's awesome because I'm a big fan of the metaverse and I
Yeah.
believe it's going to change the world in a big way. Of course, we're not seeing that big impact yet, but I believe it's
Mhm.
coming and it's something that keeping an eye on. Like I have a YouTube channel for tech, so I'm a big nerd, and I love to kind of like see what's coming in the future. And I can see things going into this like virtual reality AR thing that Apple is working on. Google is like trying to get in that space really aggressively, and of course Facebook. So it's going to be like a platform war in the future for the metaverse, and it's actually starting now. So can you tell us a bit about your involvement with the NFT space and maybe the metaverse, and what do you see in this space?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I first actually discovered the NFT space in 2017, which was pretty early, and I heard about it through a project called CryptoKitties, which is still around today.
Yeah.
I think like the internet culture and cats, it's like very popular, and it's also kind of an intro into like NFTs and gaming, so it caught on like really well. And after that, I kind of left the space for a little while until, 2020 came around and I kind of became reinvigorated. And I was like, oh, hey, I kind of remember these NFT
Hmm.
things. I think I heard about them once before. But I was able to get more educated the second time around and finally able to create my own. Like, I have a little bit of coding experience, but it's pretty hard to just full on
Yeah.
code by yourself. So I really leaned on the community side of the NFT, like, community and Web3 when I came back in to actually like really, move forward and progress in the space. Like I had heard about it before, but it wasn't really like something that I would say I was passionately involved in until like 2020. So it took a long time. And I would say like content creation or, really any journey where you're going to be like building a personal brand like this, like it could take like 5 years. That's
Yeah,
not
even
something that
more.
everyone wants to hear. But yeah, I think it's impossible to just to be an overnight success without like any foundation for like, let's keep that going forward. Like,
I like a tweet that Gary Vee posted like 2 days ago. It was basically
yeah.
you need luck, you need a lot of hard work, and you need good timing. But it's not gonna happen without these pieces together. So there's a lot of kind of like luck involved in getting success overnight. But I believe in working hard for a long term vision. Definitely will be more rewarding than something in the short term.
Yeah. I totally believe in that. And I think Gary Vee is a great example too, because he literally told us, he's like, hey, I replied to every tweet, like
Yeah.
every DM. And that's how I built my community. So when a lot of
And he
people are trying to give
he makes me feel bad sometimes when he said
yeah.
that, and I'm like, oh my god, I forgot to reply on some YouTube comments. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go now and reply to them. So yeah, it makes sense. Like you have to be more involved, and I think the idea is basically be humble, right? Authentic and
Yeah.
humble, and enjoy the process. Riley, I
And I
want to
think
ask you. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead, go ahead. We have a delay, so go
Oh,
ahead.
I just think that, like, as long as you're providing value, that's kind of what Gary Vee wants out of your content too, right? If you're being, valuable for your community member, even if we don't necessarily remember to reply to every comment, make 4 TikToks a day. Like, he tells us to do things. Like,
Yeah.
it is a list of things, but if you can get even some of that list done, like, you're in a better spot for sure.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about the content creation part of your NFTs. So
Yeah.
which platform are you posting on, and what software or tools are you using to create those pieces of art? So
Absolutely.
think of somebody who doesn't know what an NFT is. So that might be somebody in the audience.
Oh, yeah. So the first NFT platform I ever used was OpenSea, like by
Hmm.
far, I think the most known platform. And it's very easy if you are already somewhat onboarded into crypto. Like you need a crypto wallet. So that's like the big first step for anyone that doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency and
Hmm.
NFTs is just maintaining a safe wallet because if you don't know how to protect it, it's literally like your social security card. Like you have to protect your private keys like you would your bank account. And crypto is finances. So when people are like, "Oh, I want to create my art, do NFTs," like you do have to get some finance knowledge in there about like how does cryptocurrency work? Like
Hmm.
what would be a good I know Ethereum's been around for a long time and that's like the primary NFT, cryptocurrency, but there are also other, coins like Polygon and
Hmm.
Solana which are carbon neutral and a lot cheaper to get started. So I would say like you don't need thousands of dollars to get started in the NFT space. I would say you could get started with like less than $50. Like the barrier to entry is very low. You don't need any special iPads. Like I have one, but you don't need that. You could take just a picture and make that into an NFT if you truly wanted to. Like I know a lot of artists who do like their poetry or there's a lot that you can do. Anything that's a digital file, you can make into an NFT basically.
And for somebody who never heard what an NFT is or doesn't know what
Yeah.
it is, how would you explain it to them and like talk to me like I'm five?
Oh, yeah, of course. So I always say a non-fungible token or an NFT is like a digital asset. And then digital in the sense that it could be like any digital file, right? Like we think of the JPEG as like the first thing, but it could be anything. And the asset part of it is kind of how it relies to the blockchain and cryptocurrency, but every NFT is basically created from its own smart contract. So if you know anything about coding, like each contract
Hmm.
is unique, and that's where we get like the metadata or like the properties of each NFT that makes it unique, basically.
Yeah, like when I was explaining this to my brother, who was a bit older than me, I just said, "Hey,
Yeah,
think of like a king seal, right? So there's only one way to know that's the original one. So it's like a
yeah,
certificate or something like that that tells you that this is the original copy. And even if you make copies of that, it doesn't change the certificate part or the smart contract. And that's how,
exactly.
yeah, it stays secure, I guess.
Yeah, and, the smart contract is also why you can't really just, like, right click save an NFT
Hmm.
because you can relate a smart contract to things like token gated software or, things that you won't be able to access the software if you don't hold the NFT. So when people who are holders talk about utilities, they're usually talking about something like that, something tangible that, like, your NFT can give you as value because you invested in it or you hold it right now.
Okay. And
Okay.
what kind of NFTs or what kind of artwork like you mainly focus on? I've seen
Yeah.
some of them on your Twitter page, but can you tell us like what's the type of art that you focus on?
Yeah, I focus on surreal art. So
Mm.
basically, my art, I just want to reflect a world that is like a little bit more colorful, a little bit more interesting than our world. So I paint a lot of like the beach or, things that are around me, basically. I get a lot of inspiration from nature, but I've also done works in other mediums as well. So I think most of my NFTs have been some combination of like painting and digital art, but I've done ceramics and sculpture and metal welding and stuff too. So I definitely want to keep it open for the future, like for the
I
future.
really loved, by the way,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
drone shot you had in purple.
Oh, thank
That
you.
was really nice. Yeah, G-
Yeah,
purple
I
is my
like the
color.
um,
Oh yeah.
I need to get out and use that more.
Okay. Yeah, it looks really nice. So Riley, in terms of like the NFT space, if somebody's want to just jump on it now, what would be your advice, or let's say, what would you tell them if they just want to jump on it and they don't have an idea about what to do in terms of making NFTs or selling them, but they have a background in art or like graphic design and they want to jump on it.
Yeah. And I would say, like, anybody, even if you don't have a background of, like, art or graphic design, could become involved in the NFT space. Like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of opportunity, even for people with, like, traditional jobs, like accounting or, like, legal. Like, they really need people in the NFT space right now. So, if you're thinking about, like, Web3 jobs, ultimately, what I would say, or, like, even just getting into the NFT space in general, is start with education. And Gary Vee says the same thing. You need like 50 hours of dedicated research
Yeah.
because the space moves so quickly and it's all based on very new technology. So when you're thinking about like what are the implications of this very new technology? It's a whole new industry that like blockchain in general has only been around for 10 years. And when we're thinking about creation of industries, like that's very, very new.
Yeah.
So you can still build it. If you join the space now, you're going to have an influence in how it goes into the future, right? As you're building your community. And if you like, certain art or certain things, like you can be an influence in the community because you are creating your voice, right? Like you're sharing that there. So I think that's the coolest part of the space is like the newest content creators, like they're really sharing like their authentic, like this is my art. This is what I wanted to do. Not because a gallery told me to do it, but because
Hmm.
it's meaningful to me.
That's awesome because we've seen this happen in many industries, right? So some people just
Yeah.
jump on it because they want to make a quick buck and they don't really have a passion for it. And like Gary Vee said or
Yeah.
other mentors, like that's not the right way. That's not the right reason to start this. You want to have a passion for it, but at the same time, you want to have a long term plan, not just I want to make quick buck because we know it's difficult to make quick buck with any kind of new industry. Like there are ways to do it, but uh, it's about luck. It's about knowing really deeply well, what you said, the research part, right? You have to know it like from A to Z, and I see a lot of people like, especially on Twitter and different platforms, they try to jump on it just for the money part, and I think that's not the right reason. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would agree with that. I think that, there are, of course, stories of people making,
Hmm.
hundreds of $1,000s overnight. And so that's going to cause a lot of attention. But I think if you are getting into the space of like, I'm just going to mint out a project and leave, like
Yeah.
that's a scam, that people are not going to long term, want that. And because the space is so new, some people will get arrested
Yeah.
one day. So, I mean, if you are just like, "Oh, I'm gonna create a business and then I'm not actually gonna create that business, I'll just lie to people," like, there are already laws in place to be like, "Hey, don't do that." So I think it's very important if you're trying to market NFTs, you're trying to market your art, like don't promise people like you're gonna immediately become rich.
Hmm.
That's a very bad marketing strategy, I would say. It's a lot better to be like, this is what I'm bringing as value. I'm showing up here every day. This is what my art is. You can talk to me. How many artists can you go randomly talk to and, talk about their work? So I think the space is so small, like you could reach out to the next Picasso right now and,
Hmm.
collect their work. And I think that's the exciting part, not the like get rich quick overnight part for sure.
Yeah, that's an awesome advice. Can you tell us about your content creation day? What would that look like for you? So the reason I'm asking this, I ask this a lot of creators, is because I want to see the mindset part of creating content. So everyone is different, right? So some people work in the morning, some people work at night, some people work outside, some inside, some are introverts, some extroverts. So what are your kind of like let's say um, so what are the things you do before you start creating the content, and what would that day look like? Is there a specific day? So, um,
Yeah.
what is it?
So I think I try to, of course, like drink coffee in the morning,
Okay,
like just
same.
to make sense for a second, and when I thought about, your question, some content creation is definitely very organic in the
Hmm.
moment, not planned. And I think those are also like great times to shoot, like if you're with your friends or, you're at the beach or whatever. But I think other videos or, content, I have definitely more plans.
Okay.
So, knowing your lighting, like if I want to go scout neighborhood like locations around where it's local, or I look at my calendar a lot because if you have like event-based content creation, it's always really good to prepare for that. So like I go to like an NFT conference or something, like I might want to create content around that, but like planning your day at a huge convention is a little bit different than just planning like a get ready with me video at home or
Mm.
something. So I think if you can be really organized about your schedule and then like what's coming up in what do I need to prepare for in the future content wise, like that can really help in the moment. But yeah, just some combination of like organic and planned content is kind of how I'd choose to go about it.
And I think that's the healthy way, right? Because you wanna.
Yeah.
It's something we say in the YouTube space. It's like one video for me and one video for the audience. So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
balance of those, right? Do you? By the way, do you use Notion? I just was curious.
I do use Notion. I
Okay,
love it.
same.
I'm
I love
a
Notion.
total only tools. So any new tool, like I automatically want to learn about it and like,
Okay.
how can I use this? How can I integrate this into my system? So like you mentioned, like the drone, like super great for taking pictures or things that you can't normally get with like certain tool. I just like to see how they work, right? Like why is this microphone better? Or like how am I gonna get the shot because I have a drone now or
And
something like
And
yeah,
case in point is Polywork. That's how we actually met. So yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
a new platform, and I'm really excited about it. It's really awesome.
I am really excited about Polywork, honestly. I like it so much better than, like, LinkedIn because
Like
it gives
exactly.
you the
I
ability
feel it's
to,
like
like, network with people. Yeah.
yeah, it's like a mix of Twitter and LinkedIn, but it's way better than both.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It is way better than both. Go
Absolutely.
Polyworks. So, yeah, join Polyworks if you're a creator. That's
Yeah, it's one of the best platforms for creators. Riley, I want to ask you about like failures and successes. What can you tell us about your biggest failure and success when it comes to creating content, but also generally in your life? Like this question is more about inspiring others from success and failure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think my biggest failures have always been like times where I gave up,
Mhm.
especially surrounding content creation, because it can be very frustrating. It can be very daunting, especially when you feel like you're starting from zero, like you gain a follower, they unfollow you. Like that is a very
Mhm.
big grind. So it took me a long time to just like, let's get through that. Let's start making genuine connections with people, right? And I think that's what helped me get over that. And in terms of like other failures, like I've had a lot of like stress in my life. So if you have like family stress or, like if you come from an abusive situation, like don't let people feel like, oh, you have to be the most productive person. Like you went through abuse. Like,
Yeah,
if that was something that you had to deal with, like we need to take time for our mental health, our sanity, our energy, or like you were saying, like one video for you, one video for the audience. Like if
balance,
that
right?
has to be, yeah. Definitely. And then I would say my biggest success has been just all of the support that I've gained since joining the NFT space and, being confident enough to share my art. Like, I've been followed by like Paris Hilton and Pussy Riot and like
Awesome.
amazing female creators because basically I wasn't nervous enough to share my art before. So if you can get through some of those walls that you built for yourself, and I know we all built walls for ourselves somewhere,
Mm.
that is definitely how I would encourage others to get through some of the tougher times.
Okay. Okay, just one sec. Yeah, I heard some bit of like mic noise, but now it's gone. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no worries. We're gonna edit all of this. So my next question for you, Riley, is about mentorship. Is there somebody that you look up to in terms of, advice or as a mentor? It could be a person or a book or something. So we talked about Gary Vee, but is there someone else?
Yeah, besides like the NFT influencers that are super huge, I would say like I've been inspired by the classical masters in the art world. So like every day I think about my trip when I went to the Louvre in Paris and I just walked around like rooms for hours looking at these like huge paintings, these huge marble statues and just really imagining like what would my work be like here? You know what I mean? Like we still think about all these artists from the Renaissance like hundreds of years later, and their creations are really what we think about all the time. And I saw the Mona Lisa in person, and it's so small, and they created
Mm.
a wall in the middle of the room just for this one painting, so it's, like, obvious, like, that's the center of the room, like, you walk into the room and everybody knows. And I think that showing, like, longevity through your creations and everything, that's really mentored me in a way. I've never met any of these artists, right? But I feel like we've all been touched by at least one of the masters whether it be, like, Monet or Picasso and things. So I think that's really what I've been inspired by artistically. I think I've had a lot of really important teachers and mentors that have been like a little more personal to me that nobody would have known like my math teacher or something. But in terms of what everyone would know, of course, like Paris Hilton, Gary Vee, but yeah, definitely all of the artists in the world.
That's incredible because talking about like the artists from the Renaissance era, like my biggest
Yeah.
idol is Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what? He was a polymath.
Oh, yeah. He was a
Yeah.
poly.
So
Da Vinci was so amazing.
it's crazy. Like for me, that era is where kind of like art and science, everything kind of melted together in a beautiful way. And you can find people who were like doctors, scientists, philosophers, astronomers, and I think kind of we lost our way in terms of like being let's say multidimensional human being, right? So and I was always inspired by that, but in today's society, it's more about being a specialist or narrowing down. And I've always was inspired by the past instead of like to say that what's happening now. And Da Vinci for me was a big idol. And when you said that about the Louvre, it really hit home for me.
Yeah, when you said that about, like, Da Vinci being, like, very multi-passionate, multi-talented, like, that's so true. I feel like a lot of the people in the past, they were, like, philosophers, mathematicians, like, they did so much, and now we are very, like, one specialized, like but I think polywork is hopefully trying to change that.
That's
Like, I
why
don't
we're
wanna
on
be
it.
just an
Yeah,
artist. Yeah, I don't wanna be just a content creator, like, we are all so much more, right?
absolutely. Riley, there's something about the internet that is good, but also, the other
Yeah.
side, right? The dark side, which is the toxicity, the negative feedback or the comments that people get. Have you ever faced any of these issues, and how did you deal with them? Because that's the biggest kind of like, the biggest monster hiding behind the bush for content creators is the wild, nature of the internet and the dark
Oh,
side of
yeah,
it.
that's very true.
It's fun to talk about
I
too.
would say yeah, not everyone will be happy with you or your choices, and no, that's, like, whatever content that you choose to make. Like, someone will probably be upset in some way, even if you're just doing a dancing video, they'll be like, "Why are you dancing? How dare you?" Or if you're talking about something, they might not share that opinion, but I think you can't please everybody, so it's too emotionally taxing to just deal with, like, that burden. So if you have like negative feedback or criticism, I think it is worth doing like a little bit of self introspection to be like, why would they comment that?
Hmm.
Is it because they just don't really have, they're just commenting to be negative, or was it actually like, hey, your lighting could have been better? Like there are some, things that are constructive criticisms. And I think, you should pay attention to the comments that you have that are not always, good, but not hateful. If you're getting really hateful comments, then, just ban them, delete the comment, you don't need to
Ignore them.
deal with that. Yeah, ignore it because online toxic behavior, it can feel really dramatic in that moment, but like as time passes, it kind of doesn't feel as bad.
Eh,
And that's kind of what I've noticed. It can be very, very dramatic in the moment, but if you just let time pass in that scenario, like, okay, somebody made a negative comment, like you're still going to make more videos and then like everyone's going to forget about it eventually.
Yeah, I had literally the same discussion like 2 days ago with another guest on the podcast, and it was about like the contrast between what happens online and real life. Like how many
Yeah.
times people come to you and say something rude in real life? It's so rare. It's like if that happens, it would be like the highlight of your life that something happened like that. But online, it's
Oh,
rampant. It's because people are hiding behind the keyboard, anonymous, and stuff like that. So yeah, just human nature, I guess.
yeah. I mean, it just takes some deep breaths, try to be positive, go outside, don't look at your phone if that helps in those situations. But I would say letting that stop you is the mistake though. Just because there are negative people online, like don't let that stop your shine. Right? Be a star.
Absolutely. Is there something you do when it comes to social media, like keeping your phone on focus mode when you create content, or like turning off notifications that kind of keeps you more focused, less distracted? Is there something you do about social media distractions in your content creation days?
That is definitely something I need to work on. I mean, I do my lists on like Notion and be like, I have to get this done today, no
Mhm.
matter what, right? But in terms of like little everyday distractions, I'm very ADHD. So
Okay.
we're working through that. Yeah. But as long as you know some of your issues, like you can help combat that. So I know I'm ADHD and get distracted easily. Like I can tell, like, I need to definitely focus on, this is my calendar, this
I'm
is
actually
my
the
list. Right?
same, and I found a really cool app. It's on iOS and Android. It's called like Grow a Tree or something. So it's
Okay.
basically, yeah, it blocks all the apps that you don't want to use, like social media apps. And every time you kind of like look at them, because you can force the app to go back to normal mode. You have to pay a small amount, and that amount goes to growing trees around the world.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I'll
Because
get me off TikTok and grow trees. Yes.
exactly. So, Riley, the question that really comes to mind now is about staying positive. So we're gonna move from the negative side to the positive side.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you do to stay positive every day and keep the energy flowing? We know for content creation or in general to be creative,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of energy, and sometimes you can have one discussion or one small talk with somebody, and it can drain the energy for the whole day, right? So we know that's so difficult to stay in that creative mode. So what do you do usually or sometimes to keep that energy high, or bounce back from a negative, moment?
Yeah. So I learned from like working in retail, like if you start at a really high positive level and somebody who is negative comes into your store or whatever, it tries to bring you down. It's a lot harder if you're already up here. If you
Mm.
start at like a mid positive level and you're like, okay, I'm going to create content, but I'm not super positive about it, it's
Yeah.
a lot easier to bring you down. But if you're like, no, I'm very excited about my content and this is why I care about it so much, and then you get some negativity, it's a lot easier to stay positive from a high positive point. That's also kind of hard to maintain. Like you said, like one conversation could be really, really draining for you. So I think it's important to pay attention to like what is draining to you. Do you feel like you're very drained after this? Or do you feel like, okay, no, I completed this video, but I can still move on to like searching about what I'm going to do content about next or writing out like a script or something? I think if you can switch gears, sometimes that can also help you. If you're focused on one task for like hours and hours and hours, like editing, it's gonna be more draining than if you're able to just switch up mentally and
Yeah.
focus. But as far as other ways of like staying grounded, it's important to just do things that make you happy, even if they're small. Like, I love sharing my cup of coffee. So, like, in the morning, like, that's, my me time and things. So, if you can find even just like small positive things that you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to latch onto, it's very brief, like, just chill. I think that helps definitely in keeping like a base positivity. And then if you don't wanna tell people, then just don't tell people. Like, you don't have to tell everybody in your life that, "I'm gonna try to create content now." I think
Hmm.
that can be very scary for people. So, if somebody comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, I saw you're creating TikTok videos now," you can be like, "Oh, that's cool, you saw that." But, like, you don't need to tell everybody, like, "Oh, this is what I'm gonna do now. This is
Yeah.
my journey." It can be a lot harder when you start putting expectations on like, "Oh, no, now everybody knows, and then I didn't create a video," or you know what I mean? Like, it's easier to build a base from, strangers online than it is like your local, like, "Oh, I'm gonna show my best friend my TikTok." Like, that's a lot more draining, I would say.
That's such a beautiful piece of advice because I feel a lot of people can resonate with this because when you want to create content, you have
Yeah,
these great ideas and usually we tend to want to share them because we're so excited. We want to share them with our partners, friends, family. But sometimes it's better to just shut up and do the work. And like you said, build your small bubble with the internet instead of just telling everybody, hey, I'm gonna do this. And like just can be just like one like small intonation or voice. You say like, "Oh, I'm doing NFTs," and people say, "NFTs? Ah, this
yeah,
can bring the whole week for you." Like it's so critical to just don't tell people that and just focus on the work. And I
yeah.
and, and I can tell you this personally.
That's so true. I mean, if it's your dream, like, don't let other people tell you that your dream isn't your dream. And they're like, "Oh, no, that's stupid. You should never be on
Yeah,
YouTube." Well, like, there are so many people who have made it because of YouTube now. Like, they just think it's stupid, but that's not your problem, right?
absolutely. So just like basically for anybody listening, stick to what you want to do at least I would say at least like few months, right, to actually get the
Yeah,
momentum and keep the wheel of content creation going. And then maybe you can ask some people in the communities because there are a lot of Facebook groups that can help you with some specific things. You don't have to ask your friend about, hey, how can I like make this lighting work if they don't know. You can go to a Facebook group with other like-minded people that can help you. So there's no excuse to just say, "Oh, I'm sharing this with my friend or my family or somebody I know because I want help." That's a fake excuse. You don't want help. You just want to. You're excited, so you want to tell them that you're doing something good, and that can be a recipe for disaster, as we just discussed.
so yeah. And I mean, I think it's still okay to eventually share, like, "I've been working on this. I'm
Yeah,
excited," to, like, your
exactly.
friends and
After
family.
after
But
you started, not just
yeah,
like yeah, exactly.
yeah. If they don't support you, like, don't let that stop you, though, is my point too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going.
Riley, we're almost done with the podcast time. So, can you tell us what would you do differently if you started today? Which is basically an advice for somebody starting today, and you're talking to them now.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we talked a lot about like the start and the stop of like content creation. So, I would just say if I could maintain more consistency, even with really small goals, like that is really good for, starting your creative journey. So, like, if you can get, your first goal to be like, I want 50 followers, like that's a very small goal, but it's doable. And then after you have 50 followers, you'll realize, like, oh, wait, I could have doubled this goal. It's a lot easier to keep having smaller goals that you will be able to fulfill than being like, "I wanna have 10,000 followers right now." It's a lot harder to think about because even if you made, 1,000 followers, that's really great, like, social proof for a lot of people. If somebody looks at your page and they're like, "Wow, 1,000 other people, like, followed you." That is a definite, like, positive, but if you just felt like, "No, I'm not at 10,000 yet," then it's harder to keep being motivated, right? So I think if I was starting my journey all over again from zero, I would definitely try to keep small goals, keep collaborating, with other creators, especially if they can help you with like, hey, I had a lighting question or things. Like maybe your best friend doesn't know about what the best microphone is to use, but if you can network with other creators that are like similar size to you, like that's honestly like a win-win. Like and if you can create friendships from it, that's even better, right? So I think if you start with like, I just want to make all the money overnight, like that's not a great, mindset to be like, I'm going to continue this journey for a very long time. Because when you don't make money, immediately, you might just think like, oh, I'm never going to get any opportunities from content creation. But that could be farther from the truth. Like I've gotten so many opportunities just from, putting myself out there, creating content, sharing my art, talking with people. But it wouldn't have happened if you just were like, nope, I'm too small. Like, not for me. So I think, don't limit yourself. Like that's my biggest thing. Cause I felt very limited myself. I'm like, no, I'm only, a person. Like I'm not a huge celebrity, but nobody is above you, right? Everyone is going to be at the same level, even if they're like a CEO or something, like nobody is better than you, right? So just, remember that, remember your thoughts and that like if you're sharing your authentic self, then that's not bad, right? That's you. If you're sharing your not authentic self online, then maybe take a look at like why you feel the need to do that. Is it just because you want to go viral? Is it just because you want to make money with like brands, sponsorships and things? Because if you go down a path for a very long time and you're like, I'm going to build this career surrounding media, like content creation is, it's a media based career basically. You want to make sure that you're representing you authentically so that if you decide to do something a few years from now, like it's not going to, misrepresent what you wanted to, right?
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Because I
So,
don't know that
yeah,
everyone will be a content creator forever, right? If you want to
yes,
go be a CEO, like you shouldn't have all this content laying around that you're not proud of, right? Like,
absolutely. And that's why I believe in the concept of polywork or being a polymath, because we have so
yeah,
many passions that sometimes the society or like the people around us, they kind of like push them down. And we're supposed to do this. And if you do many things, you're not gonna be successful. But success is subjective, like it's not something that I can take your success and apply it to my life, and then I'm going to be happy. So there's a lot of elements that we kind of disregard in our society nowadays, especially doing something that you really love, but at the same time you feel fulfilled. And we always chase the numbers, like you said, big numbers. Like I want to get to 1 million subscribers, I want to be rich, but sometimes just focusing on what you actually can do now can get you there. That's the funny thing. You can get there when you don't really care about it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but when you stress about it, that's when you burn out, and that's a recipe for not getting there. It's so funny.
Yeah,
So
that's
Riley,
so true.
yeah, Riley, can you tell us about your next projects and where can people find you?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm always going to be creating art, but, in addition to that, I'm in the process of writing my first book about, NFTs and the creative economy, helping people like learn about like the philosophy of art, why it matters, and just creating a more, safe but let's see, like longevitable, resources. Because a lot of people will tell you, like, go onto Twitter spaces to learn, but like those are all like live audio, not record, and it's harder to find resources that are like in print form. So I've been working on that. That's my newest project. And yeah, just always creating more content. I'm Rylee Armond on Twitter and TikTok. So
And we're gonna put all the links in the show notes.
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. So Riley, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we should definitely continue to connect in the future. Like,
Absolutely. I would love to have you on the show again and talk about your progress and what we learned together.
oh, awesome. I would just love to be friends, honestly.
Yeah, sure. That would be really great. Thank you guys for watching the show and see you in the next one.